The stingy bureaucrats at Veterans Affairs have finally loosened up their purse strings. Oh, but friends, don't get too excited. They're paying for the mental health treatment of a convicted murderer who never actually served in the Canadian Forces. This story is almost too crazy to be true. A convicted murderer who never served a single solitary moment in the Canadian military is having his PTSD treatment paid for by Veterans Affairs. Christopher Garnier, age 30, is serving a life sentence for the second-degree murder of a woman in his apartment in 2015. Now, at Garnier's sentencing in December, the court heard that his father, who had actually served in the Canadian Forces, also has PTSD, and that getting treatment for his son helps them both. But here's the most insane, infuriating, and demented part of this already demented story. If you weren't already mad enough, this part is so gross, it is, again, hard to believe. The PTSD Garnier is being treated for is related to a murder. But it's the very same murder he committed, and it's the same one he's in the slammer for at least another 13 years. The guy gave himself PTSD when he murdered a beautiful, vibrant, off-duty Nova Scotia police officer named Catherine Campbell after meeting her in a bar. He stuffed her battered body in a trash can and disposed of her like garbage under a bridge. And in an unbelievable act of gall, the convicted murderer lowlife also tried to use his PTSD diagnosis to get a reduced sentence, to avail himself of a parole hearing after 10 years instead of 13. Remember, this is the PTSD he gave himself after murdering a 6-year veteran of the police force in cold blood. And it's the same PTSD that we're all now paying to treat him for. Veterans Affairs issued a generalized statement to the CBC about the whole mess without referring to the case directly, saying, "When a man or woman serves in Canada's armed forces or the RCMP, their whole family serves with them." That is why the Government of Canada has made it a priority to not only improve benefits and services for our nation's veterans, but for their families as well. As such, access for family members of veterans to counseling and other services may be provided in circumstances where it is determined that the provision of these services will assist the veterans in achieving their rehabilitation goals. Except that if a current Canadian Forces member was convicted of this murder, they would be thrown out of the force and receive absolutely no benefits. And as you know, Veterans Affairs has been in the news lately with the help of a few big Trudeau blunders. Normally, you know me, I'm not one to complain when government bureaucrats are penny pinching. It's so abnormal given the wasteful culture that exists in government offices. But it is the greatest irony of all government that the only place normal people would agree the Fed should be a little more, for lack of a better term, liberal with their spending, is on Veterans Affairs. And yet, the opposite is always true. Let's take a quick look back, shall we? Remember when we found out that Canadian soldiers were forced to share and swap around sleeping bags and rucksacks amongst themselves because the federal government had not bothered to spend the cash to procure them enough supplies to do their jobs effectively? And some of those same rucksacks, well, they're over 30 years old, older than many of our active service military. In the last 2 years, the federal government has spent nearly $40 million, mostly on lawyers, to fight Canadian veterans over their benefits and pensions after Justin Trudeau made a campaign promise to end the legal battles with our Canadian heroes. And with regard to mental health specifically, the Trudeau Liberals have failed our veterans. According to this Canadian Press article, reprinted in Occupational Health and Safety Canada magazine, demand for service has been outstripped by the resources available to a network of mental health clinics set up across the country to help veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and other psychological trauma, an internal government report suggests. As a result, the report warns many veterans in places like Quebec City, Vancouver, and Edmonton have been forced to wait longer before seeing a mental health specialist or psychiatrist, despite the importance of timely intervention. The wait time challenge is separate from the backlog of 29,000 requests for disability benefits at Veterans Affairs Canada and follows a previous warning from the Federal Auditor General about the former soldiers facing long waits for badly needed mental health services. You see, there just aren't enough mental health services available for the actual soldiers who need them. These soldiers, they've been protesting in the winter cold to get access to mental health services. But Veterans Affairs is paying for a murderer to overcome the PTSD he gave himself when he butchered a Nova Scotia police officer and then committed an indignity to her body. Remember this here?
I was prepared to be killed in action. What I wasn't prepared for, Mr. Prime Minister, is Canada turning its back on me. So which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your passion and your strength and being here today to share this justifiable frustration and anger with me and with all of us here. Thank you for having the courage to stand here, and thank you for listening to my answer. On a couple of elements you brought up. First of all, why are we still fighting against certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now.
Corporal Brock Blaschuk was asking for more than Trudeau was willing to give him, and Trudeau had no problem telling him as much. Real veterans have a hard time and long waits to get access to the mental health treatment they need and deserve. They bear the wounds of war. They got doing what we asked of them, and they did it without question. In the meantime, some psycho jumps ahead of them because he gave himself PTSD, killing a woman, and his dad is a vet. There's always money for the Liberals to hug a thug or two. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Silicon Valley and big tech has a real hate on for us conservatives. They love to censor us, but we've got a way around that. We have our own Rebel Media mobile app. You can download it on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Download it, give it a try, send us a little feedback, and take the other side of the story with you wherever you go.